Today, in the media conference with Lal Goel, which is brought to you by V4 News, Karu News, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV India, News Gaon se, Samvad Sarokar News, Bharat Post News, Gyan and Organ Donation India Foundation. Our endeavor is to enlighten you with the current topic, and today's topic is not only current but very, very relevant. And the topic is professionally managed business. Professionally managed business or companies are run by the professionals who are also an employee of the company. These professionals may or may not have any significant stake in the company. Few of the major characteristics of the professionally managed businesses are: the professionals are in their position of chairman or CEO only as long as they are able to complete their responsibilities. These professional managers can easily be fired by the board of the directors if they do not meet the required company target. One of the popular example is the Tata Sons board of directors firing Cyrus Mistry as its chairman because of his issue with Mr. Ratan Tata. These professionals focus on performance and consistency. The biggest disadvantage of professional management is that they can readily leave the company for a better pay or perquisites offered by another company. Few best examples of professionally managed companies in India are ITC, SDFC, HUL, L&T, etc. Now, to discuss this very, very important topic, professionally managed business, we have very elite experience. Those who are knowing the complete position of the professionally managed business in India, especially panelists are with us. I would like to invite and introduce my first panelist guest, and he is Professor Dr. Sudhir Saran. Professor Dr. Sudhir Saran is the former visiting professor IIM Lucknow and University of Texas at Dallas, USA. He is the founder of Dr. Sharan Consultancy, California, USA. He is the director of Eldo Private Limited, New Delhi. He has done his MBA from IIM Ahmedabad in 1980. He did PhD in 1986. He started teaching and researching business and entrepreneurship since 1984. He published research papers in reputed journals, international seminar proceedings, and chapters in books of readings. He started academic administration phase as dean in 1997, rising to executive director, controlling management and engineering institutes in 2007. Her Highness, Governor of Karnataka, nominated Dr. Sharan to the Senate of Bangalore University in recognition of his distinguished academic contributions. He was visiting professor to University of Texas at Dallas from 2012 to 2019. He also visited Washington State University and President University, Indonesia, on the invitation of the Dean Faculty of Business in 2018. He innovated and implemented a unique model to double the turnover with existing infrastructure in one accounting year. He is co-promoter of Institute of Family Business Management Society. He is honorary director of NCR Delhi-based high-tech B2B digital startup. He is also co-founder of OWGI Foundation, which promotes social entrepreneurship ventures. Welcome, Professor Dr. Sudhir Saran on our show. Professor Saran, today the topic is professionally managed business. We would like to know your views on this very, very important topic, professionally managed business. Professor Dr. Sudhir Saran, please.
Thank you, Mr. Goel, for this golden opportunity. I am very glad to have Professor Anand Mohan with us and Professor Pathak with us. They are very distinguished co-panelists. I'm sure today we'll have very valuable conversation. So welcome, Professor Agrawal. Welcome, Professor Pathak. I'm looking forward to building a symphony of three people with three viewpoints. The first thing which I want to underscore is, if a business is not managed properly, it does not matter whether it is professionals who are at the helm of the affair or non-professionals are at the helm of it. The second thing is, how do we define professionally managed versus other kinds of management? And the third thing is professionally managed always an advantage? Or there are times when professionally managed can be a distinct disadvantage. In my introductory conversation, I want to focus on these three issues. If somebody has qualification relevant to the role that person is given, we can call that professionally managed. If somebody does not have educational qualification pertinent to that role, then we will hesitate in calling it professionally managed. So this is the main distinction. What is the educational qualification? And add to it, what is the experience gained over the work life of the individual? That helps us call a business managed professionally or otherwise. The other point, a sticky point here is family managed business versus professionally managed business. Now, today, the lines are blurred. Maybe 50, 60 years ago, family managed businesses had a distinct culture of management, and professionally managed companies had distinct culture of management. But today, the distinctions are not there, and that is one point which I want to bring up here before anything else. When I was a student of management, we had a famous joke circulating among the student community. And that went something like this. If you hire a chartered plane and put 100 managers of Birlas, you hire another chartered plane and put 100 managers of Tatas. God forbid, the two planes crash. What will happen to the organization? That was the question. And people said, Tatas will continue on their growth path with little hiccup, short-term disadvantage. But Birlas will be completely disarrayed, disorganized, chaotic, and maybe never get up from this catastrophe. This is the reason why the family business managed businesses are seen as at a disadvantage than the companies which are managed professional. Today, we are talking about professionally managed businesses. And what I want to highlight here is, underscore is, the families today have family members who are very highly professionally qualified. Look at the family managed businesses today, and their family members are extremely well educated individuals. Whereas many professionally managed businesses don't have highly qualified people, barely qualified to manage their roles. So on the spectrum, both issues are there, and results will be affected by that. We'll discuss that as we go along our discussion today. The important point here is that distinction between a professionally managed company and a non-professionally managed company is very important. The first thing which a professionally managed company has is a culture of mutual respect for each other's domain of responsibility. Very important. A marketing manager is free to take product decisions. A finance manager is free to take budget limits. A manufacturing manager is free to take which technology will be used in the organization. In a non-professionally managed company, this will be rare if at all present. It will be an exception, whereas in a professionally managed company, this will be the rule. So I think the first point is very clear. How do I recognize which company is managed professionally and which is not managed professionally? The second thing in professionally managed company is there is politics for promotion and career growth, but it has boundaries. It may be dysfunctional at times, I accept it, but the boundaries exist in the politics for career growth and promotion. In a non-professional companies, there are no holds barred kind of a politics. Dog eat dog policy is present in those. There are many other distinctions. My learned co-panelists will bring them out. I'm very confident. What I want to do is limit myself to these two and connect them to the climate in the business and the performance of the business. We are all human beings. We do not want to be wronged. We are all human beings. We want to be supported by colleagues. We are all human beings. We want to be given credit for performance. We are all human beings. We want to be rewarded for our good performance and commitment. These things are possible in a professionally managed company more in quantity than a family business managed or non-professionally managed business as such. There can be exceptions, but there are, as I said, checks and balances. Policies are there, practices are there, cultural norms are there in professional managed companies. All these combined enable the company to carve a place in the industry for the business. In an industry, the deadliest thing, the worst thing is head-on collision of company A with company B. Professionally managed businesses, for the factors and reasons I have mentioned, avoid the head-on collision and they bring in the practice called live and let live. Not only the business benefits from it, industry benefits from it. Not only industry benefits from it, the economy benefits from it. Not only one economy benefits, the global economy benefits from this one for multiple reasons. And that is why professionally managed businesses are so respected and are so desirable. I will stop here because we will like to listen to the views of our respected, very distinguished co-panelists. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Sudhir Saran, for giving your opening remarks. And Professor Saran has given the distinction between the family-owned business and the professionally managed businesses. And he said that the advantage of professionally managed businesses that they will not go for a head-on collision with the another competitor. They believe that everyone should exist. And he has given a very interesting example of a plane load of data executives and a plane load of Birla's executive, and God forbids if they crash, what will be the happening? Because according to him, the Tata is being the professionally managed company, will have some hiccup, but it will survive, while Birla's being a
family managed business will have definitely lots of problem for revival or to even sustain themselves. So according to him, the professionally managed companies have more advantages than the privately held or the family businesses. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Sudhir Saran, for giving your opening remarks. I'm sure in the next round you will be giving more details about the family versus professionally managed companies. Now, I would like to invite my next panelist guest, and he is Professor Dr. Pramod Pathak. Professor Dr. Pramod Pathak is reputed international corporate trainer, public speaker, blogger, and columnist. He is the former professor and head of management studies, IIT Dhanbad. He is postgraduate in psychology and an MBA with PhD in stress management from Banaras Hindu University. He is reputed management and psychological consultant and is founder of Kaizen Mantra, a training and consulting organization. He has also founded the Goodness Movement that aims to spread positivity through writings and lectures. His columns are published in leading newspapers and periodicals, and his blogs are read globally. He was also on faculty Institute of Management, BHU. Having guided some 30 PhDs successfully, he has written several books and over 100 research articles in reputed journals. As a global lecturer, he has delivered talks at various international seminars, conferences, and workshops in several countries. Welcome, Professor Dr. Pramod Pathak on our show. Professor Dr. Pramod Pathak, you have heard what Dr. Sudhir Saran has spoken about the professionally managed business. You being having a advantage because you have been in the IIT as well as you have done the management, the stress management, and the psychological things. So you know the psychology of a family owned business versus the psychology of a professional owned business. So we would like to know your views on professionally managed business. Professor Dr. Pramod Pathak, please.
Thank you, Mr. Goel. I'm very happy to be with your this show. And of course, two of my old friends are also there as co-panelists. So I think it will be a very illuminating discussion on a very relevant subject that you have chosen to discuss today. There is one, I think, difference which I would like to mention. What Professor Saran said. He was very particular about qualifications. I slightly differ from that. That it is less about the qualifications of education and more about quality of attitude. Professionalism is largely a part of culture. So even the family enterprises can be highly professionally managed, and even the so-called professional managers can mess the whole thing. So that is one thing which I would like to point out, that professionalism is largely about a culture. And the one hallmark of a professionally managed company is, if you try to put it very simply, right person on the right job. In fact, that is one thing which we find missing in most of the unprofessionally managed companies, including the governments, which also represent some kind of an organization. And that is the problem which is, in fact, very evident these days. So, in fact, there are people who say that in an unprofessionally managed company, what happens is that you tell me the man and I'll tell you the rule. So there is a different rule for every person. And the unprofessionalism, if we like to define it in lighter vein, I think it reminds me of a very old school time joke. We used to discuss about the bureaucracy, the Indian bureaucracy. And, the joke was that bureaucracy is something like this, that everybody thought somebody would do it, nobody did it, anybody could have done it. So it is some kind of a passing the buck and shirking responsibilities. So what are the basic attributes of a professionally managed company? First and foremost is the objective for which you exist, the purpose. Every company has a purpose, and every company is a creation of the society. Naturally, it has obligations to several stakeholders. And the most successfully, managed company is one which takes care of the aspirations of all the stakeholders, or rather tries to do that, of course, because there are many other reasons which go into the outcomes. But it tries to take care of the stakeholders' aspirations. And there is a very thorough professional culture in the company which determines the actions will be taken only on objective criterion or criteria, whatever. Most of the time, what happens is that the unprofessionally managed companies are running on whims and fancies of the powers that be, whosoever that person is, the CEO or the what we call the top man or the MD. But the unfortunate part is that even the most professionally managed companies at times become victims of unprofessionalism. Like Professor Sharan mentioned about one case in Tata about Cyrus Mistry. So there was one case also in Infosys when Sikka was the person who was removed from the position. So these things do happen because see, even the most professional managers are also emotional beings. So when your emotion takes the better of reason, you tend to become unprofessional. But by and large, it is some kind of a what we call trait that is there. I think I have to be excused for one moment. Hello. Hello. I'm sorry. This person was behaving unprofessionally. I was not able to pick up, and he was going on, calling and calling and calling. That is unprofessionalism. So without thinking that, and see again he has called. Excuse me for one moment. Unprofessional. Anyway, so coming back to the subject. So now there are certain other basic attributes. Foremost is the objectivity. That means whenever you take a decision, whenever you take a call, it is based on logic, it is based on reason rather than emotions. And then second thing is consistency. That story which Professor Sharan said makes very, important, gives a very important description of what unprofessionally managed company will be like and what professionally managed company will be like. The example of the plane crash of the executives of one group of company versus the other. So now see, in a professionally managed company, continuity is the essence. Because see, managers will come and managers will go, but the culture remains. Whereas in an unprofessionally managed company, what happens is that the culture depends on the person who is leading the company. So if one person is leading the company, there will be one kind of a culture. If another person is leading the company, it will be another kind of culture. And most of the time, what happens is that we become victims of our own whims. So what happens is that when a person or a leader leaves a company and the other person takes over, the first thing the next man does is that he tries to find out whatever was done by the previous person, and then he tries to undo all of them and start afresh. So this leads to what we call some kind of a chaotic situation, and then one step forward, two step backward. So that continuity is very important. In fact, we find this happening very often in political organizations. You try to change whatever has been done, as if the previous person was not worth it and he wasted the entire tenure on doing personal things. So that consistency is very important. And the other thing is that there has to be change also, because you have to take care of the what we call the environmental forces which are continuously impinging on the organization. In fact, many of the most successful companies, for instance, we saw the case of Fertilizer Corporation of India. In fact, it was one of the first public sector undertakings of the country in my area, that Jharkhand Sindri. And it failed when it could not cope up with the changes that were there in the environment post-liberalization. So it was one of the first companies to fail. So this is very important, that you have to keep pace with the market forces. Now, the modern trend is that we are focusing a lot on the professionalism part, but we are forgetting one thing, that this professionalism is less a part of what qualifications you have, and more a part of your attitude. So the companies, when they are trying to find out their professional managers, they must take care of this very important distinction between quality of attitude and qualification of education. And then that is one very essential thing, that the top man, see, whatever said and done, the powers rest with the top man. So the attitude of the top man becomes very crucial in determining the culture of the organization. So it is run more by professional considerations, objective criteria, rather than personal considerations. I'll give you a very interesting example. There's a very interesting case long back. It was one of the organizations in West Bengal, long back when the CPM was very militant and very powerful, and they had their chief ministers and their government also. So there was a Henger's glass factory there in a place called Asansol, with a member of parliament as the leader of the trade union. And it so happened that some employees, they did not behave properly and were sacked, two of them. So what happened? The company had sacked those two employees, and there was a strike, and there was a lockdown. So this lockdown continued for, say, I think quite a few days, 20, 30 days. Then there was a meeting organized between the union leader and the top man. J.K. Singhania was there those days. So the meeting happened in their guest house. So Singhania Sahab called that member of parliament who was the leader of the union and said that, why do you want to persist with the strike? The MP said that you'll have to reinstate those two people, and you have to dismiss the manager. The manager was Mr. Philip. You have to dismiss the manager, then only the factory will start. So J.K. Sahab thought for a moment, and then he said, look here, as far as reinstating the two employees is concerned, I'm willing to do that, because I think, yes, they have paid for their crime. So I think they can be taken back. But why do you insist on removing my general manager, Phillips? He said, no, he has to go. So then, Mr. J.K. was a chain smoker, and he used to smoke State Express cigarette. Whereas this fellow, the union leader, also was a chain smoker, and he used to smoke Charminar. The Charminar those days used to cost 3 paise per cigarette. Whereas, of course, the price of State Express was exorbitant. So Mr. Singhania asked this MP, the trade union leader, that can I have a cigarette of yours? The MP was surprised. He said, why do you want my cigarette? Well, no, I just, for a change, I want your cigarette. So they both were, they lit the cigarette and started smoking. After one or two, smoke he took, the Singhania, Mr. Singhania, threw the cigarette on the ground and rubbed it with his shoes. And he said, I don't want to take the name of the MP, Mr. So-and-so, I wasted one cigarette of yours, and you must be a little pained because you lost 3 paise. Look here, I'm not going to remove Philip. If you want, you can close the factory permanently. That is the kind of professionalism that is required, that you don't kowtow to unreasonable demands. And the second thing, that you have to be very reasonable when you take a decision. The problem is that we often, get carried away by other considerations which are unprofessional. So that is one thing which is very important, decision making, the quality of decision making, which has to be on professional considerations, objective criteria, rather than personal considerations. Similarly, the triple bottom line, There was a time when profit were the sole criterion. Every company used to exist for profits and profit making only. Times have changed. We today talk of the triple bottom line. So it is people, planet, and profits, the triple P bottom line. And in the same order, it's no longer about profit, people, and planet. It's about people, planet, and profit. So, and that is why there is so much of discussion and debate on CSR and its role in inclusive growth and things like that. So, a professionally managed company, because the very essence of a company is that it is a creation of the society and it is answerable to the society. So, it must take care of the society also. So, that is why, Tata's, of course, I rate them very high on this, scale of professionally managed companies. And, at one time, the punchline of Tata, those days it was called TISCO, Tata Iron and Steel Company. And Mr. Rusi Modi was the MD of that company. So those days there was a punchline of Tata Steel. We also make steel. It still makes a lot of sense these days. We also make steel. In fact, that was the punchline which Coal India imbibed in 2000. We also mine coal. Because the focus of a company is not only on the profits, it is on the planet, it is on the people, it's on the society, and of course, the shareholders also. So that triple P bottom line has to be taken care of. And you have to create a culture of empowerment. Because otherwise, what happens? The decision making gets affected. It's very important to understand this. I'll give you a very interesting, a very old anecdote, which I use as a case study in Indian management some, 30 years back. It's about a case when two gentlemen from India were in US, and one of them had gone there on a US scholarship. So his expenses were paid by the US government, and he was traveling Pan Am first class. The cost of the ticket those days was $1,800 to and from. The other gentleman who went on his personal expenses, he was traveling Air India. So naturally, on return, this gentleman requested the other gentleman that why not we travel together? So the person who was traveling on Pan Am, he said that my ticket expenses are being paid by the US government. So they won't allow. He said, let's go and talk to the officers concerned. So they went there to the Pan Am office, and the old lady on the counter said that you can't do that because you are traveling on American taxpayers' money. We cannot allow. They insisted that if anything is possible, anybody else can take a decision. Then she said that if our project manager allows, you can get that company to company endorsement and travel by Air India. It will be an exchange of money between the two companies, Air India and Pan American. So they went to that project manager. The project manager was not there. His secretary was there. Now just see the difference. So that secretary said that, well, the project manager is not here, but how can I help you? They narrated the whole story. And without thinking anything, that young lady asked for the ticket. Where is the ticket? And she wrote something on the ticket, stamped, and gave it back to the person and said that, look here, you can travel by Air India. American government is not going to get bankrupt by these $900 because $1,800 are already paid, and 900 were already consumed on one-way travel. So that is the kind of empowerment we seek in a professionally managed company. In India, what will happen? If such a scenario arises, the matter will go to the ministry or even the top man, prime minister, and still no decision will be taken. So a professionally managed company runs on decisions taken by their employees. They have an atmosphere of trust and they believe their employees. So, it is not about personal consideration. It is not about disbelief. It is not about mistrust. It is about a culture where things move. That is what a professional company is all about. So it is more of a vibrant culture, a culture that facilitates performance. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor from Dr. Pramod Pathak, for giving your views in details. And you mentioned about, you have given lots of examples of professional and business, family-run businesses. Now, because as I know that you have already mentioned that you have to leave for an important meeting, so I would like to ask first questions to you, and then I will go to my next panelist guest. You have given the example of Pan Am and Air India. Now, we all know, although both the airlines are in reds, the Pan Am is closed long ago, and Air India is all closed means it's totally bankrupt. So we can't say whether the family-run business or the professionally run business there is different. But now my thing is, you are mentioning about Tatas, how professionally managed. Everybody knows when Cyrus Mistry case came, and now it has under, it's a sub judice case because the Supreme Court has allowed the review of the judgment, so we cannot comment. But one thing was very clear, that in the business circle, people understand that Cyrus Mistry was sacked uh, not in a professional way. It's a totally unprofessional way. So and if we compare with any other top companies today, uh, you take the name of the topmost company right now is Tesla in the world. You take the name of Walmart, take any name, Reliance, Adani's, every company is a family-run company today. Infosys, we know very well, whatsoever anybody will say, the Vishal Sikka, when he was appointed and how he was unceremoniously sacked, it was again a very unprofessional act by the Mr. Murthy. Whatsoever position he enjoyed today in the corporate world, but that act was not welcomed by the corporate sector also. So my point to you is, my question to you is rather, you and Dr. Sharan has mentioned the professionally run management company. I say no, it is the family managed company which can go to the height because they have a responsibility. They have their name, their own name is on stake. Mr. Sikka's name was not a stake on Infosys. Mr. Cyrus Mistry's name was not in a stake in Tata's, and so that's the reason Mr. Mukesh Ambani or Dhirubhai Ambani, they took everything of their own and they are taking decisions whatsoever they want, although they have professionals. So don't you think that professionally managed company under a family a person who is on the top post is more successful than a entire professionally managed company? What you say about this, Professor Dr.
No, in fact, in the very beginning, I told that the distinction is rather, very thin, because whether it's a professionally managed company or it's a family managed company, professionalism is something else. It is a culture. So even a family managed company can have that professional culture, and even if the so-called professionally managed company may lack that culture. So in fact, I also mentioned that, at times emotions take the better of reason. And that I mentioned very clearly. So it was in both the cases, in the case of Ratan Tata also, in the case of Narayan Murthy also. So it is largely the attitude that is important, and the decisions that you take in a professionally managed company, which we are trying to talk about professionally managed company in a different, context altogether. So my point is that the distinction is not very fair. Any company can be professionally managed, whether it is a family managed company or whether it is a so-called professionally managed company, or whether it is a shop also, whether it is a government also, whether it is a small organization also. So professionalism is some kind of an attitude where you tend to be objective, and when you take decisions based on objective criteria rather than individual considerations, personal whims, and fancies. So it is about the attitude and culture which is more important.
You mentioned, Professor Pathak, about the government. Now, we always considered USA, the American government, as a professionally managed government. And we generally term the president of USA as the CEO of the USA. But last time we have seen how Mr. Trump has made it a personally or the family or run business company or the country. What you say about India? We say, although it's out of context, but because you have mentioned about the country, that's why I want to just clarify. Earlier, it was Nehru Gandhi Parivar who was running the show. So basically, it's a family-run country. You can say, according to you, your definition. Right now, also, everybody knows it's run by two persons only. It's nothing run by the professionals. So do you think the countries have to go, if they have to be successful, either professional run like professional businesses, or it has to be again somebody has to be there to take the decisions like Mr. Trump or Mr. Modi in India? What you say about, or Mr. Putin also?
It all depends on the value system of the individual. So if the individual is, having a value system which does not permit for personal considerations, I think it is a professionally managed company. So the value system is very important. And the value system matters. Democracies are successful only when the value system is given preference over personal considerations. So that is very important.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Pramod Pathak. As you have mentioned, you have to leave. So thank you very much for giving your views. Now, I would like to invite my last but not the least panelist guest with us, and he's Professor Dr. Anand Mohan Agrawal. Professor Dr. Anand Mohan Agrawal is the Pro Vice Chancellor of United University Prayagraj. He has 3 decades working experience spreads across a span of almost 3 decades, wherein he has been at the important positions of reputed institutions. He is an institutional builder and has established extension centers of BIT Mesra in India and Middle East. At GLA University, technique and continuously guiding the university on the path of excellence and quality education. A PhD from ISM Dhanbad, he completed his graduation BSc Engineering Mechanical as well as MBA from BIT Mesra. He started his career from ISM Dhanbad in 1984. Then he moved to AICTE as director in 1995. Further, he joined IGNOU as professor in 1999 and then back to AICTE as advisor 1 in 2000. In 2001, he came to his alma mater, namely BIT Mesra, where he went on to become dean. He joined at BIT International Center, Muscat, as director and dean in 2005. Continuing his progression, Professor Agrawal joined Oman as general manager, knowledge initiatives, wherein he served for 2 years before joining GLA University Mathura as Pro Vice Chancellor and Director in October 2012. He has guided 10 PhD scholars and has written 1 book. He has been member of various committees, including NAC and NBA. He has more than 35 publications in reputed journals and has been awarded Best Paper Award twice by Indian Institution of Industrial Engineering. Professor Dr. Agrawal was a member of editorial board of IIIE journal and also member of board of examination IIIE. He has been awarded Performance Excellence Award by IIIE at Dubai in 2015 and Professor J.M. Mahajan Award in 2017. Welcome, Professor Dr. Anand Mohan Agrawal on our show. Professor Dr. Anand Mohan Agrawal, you have heard what Professor Dr. Sudhir Saran as well as what Professor Dr. Pramod Pathak has spoken. Both have given their views. Professor Dr. Sudhir Saran insists that the qualification is important to run a professionally managed business or company, while Professor Pathak says that the culture depends on the professionally run company. If the chairman or the CEO of the company is having some self-interest, then it cannot be a professionally managed company, whether it is totally professionally managed company. But if a chairman or the CEO of a family-run company is also not having any personal interest, then it's a professional managed company. We would like to know your views on professionally managed business. Professor Dr. Anand Mohan Agrawal, please.
Thank you very much, Lal Saab, and my dear friend, Dr. Sudhir Saran and Dr. Pramod Pathak. I was listening to both of them and, of course, your introductory remarks. And one thing I just flashed into my mind. Dr. Sharan has also worked with Dr. B. Narayan, who was my head of the department when I was student, and then when I was a teacher, he was my boss. I think he gave me one mantra when I was a very young boy, that Anand, whenever you go to any organization, try to find out where is the center of power and where is the power center. And I think I have been seeing this, experiencing this, feeling this last 34 years, 35 years, that yes, be it a family-based business or a professionally managed business, rarely these two are at the same point. We were discussing something about the political scenario. We were discussing something about America, India. If you go little detail, you will always find there is two places of power. And unfortunately, these are, in my view, the distinction between the family-based business and the professionally managed business. In the current scenario, of course, there are no businesses which are not a hybrid of these two. Even the so-called birlas which are running family-based business, they also have professionals to run day-to-day affairs. Even the professionally managed businesses, we always take example of Tata's. In my view, they are also not 100% professionally managed. They also have to satisfy the stakeholders. We have seen Mr. Cyrus Mistry. We have seen what's other stakeholders who are having a lot of shares in Tata Sons. I'm not taking the names just for this discussion purpose. What I'm trying to say is that in today's world, no one can say that it is a very unique family-based business. The reason being that most of the family-based businesses in India are beyond their third generation. And in our, again, not a good analogy, a good example, but we always say in our internal discussions that first generation suffers and builds the organization, second generation spends money and doesn't add anything, and the third generation then has some learnings and experience which they try to build back the organization. In my view, the organizations must have professionals. And let me define who are the professionals at all. The professionals are someone who know their profession, their business, be it lawyer, be it finance, be it marketing, be it HR, and they are paid for their work. A fixed amount of salary, maybe some bonus, maybe some other incentives are paid to them for their work. If they perform, very good. If they don't perform, bye-bye. Now, to be the best in their profession. And that is why I was just discussing with some last week here. You know, Allahabad has a high court, very old high court, and we have many big houses where the second generation or third generation lawyers are there. So I had, because I run LLB and LLM courses in my university, so I had invited them for just a cup of tea and get their views and popularize my university. And most of them said that nowadays it is no more, the clients are no more easy to handle. The clients are also very much aware. They are nowadays no more asking through phone calls कि सर डेट कब पड़ा है, किस दिन आना है, कब हमको पेश होना है. They are also now seeing on the website when is the date, what is the serial number. So everything is now technology oriented, and we have to be very, very careful in dealing with our clients. So the professionalism has changed. So I'm on my mobile because my
No, so you have to
connections.
mute. Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is, we are not going to be have only the professionals. We must respect the value system of the families. See, an organization, be it based on the professionals or family, we have seen our public sectors, they are all professionally managed. They are all governed by the fixed rules developed by parliament or the ministry or the controlling bodies. But what has happened? Why the public sectors have failed? Because no one owned it. See, in a family, what happens? There was a gentleman who owned it, who had personal interest, who had commitment. But unfortunately, in public sectors, what happened? No one owned it. They only tried to fulfill their own interest. And that is why we have seen Maharatnas also dwindling to loss-making companies. So let's try to understand one very important thing, that we must have ownership. The moment ownership will come, we will be having our
No, please unmute. Please unmute one of the device, please. Please unmute your laptop. No, we can't hear. Nothing is coming, and you are on both on mute.
now is it
We
okay?
can't. Now it is okay. Yeah.
Yeah, then let me be on mobile only then. See, so what I was saying, that we have to be on the commitment, ownership, and dedication. Even in the family-based businesses, what happened? When the commitment was reduced, it was no one's baby. We have seen very flourishing houses vanishing within no time. If I'm allowed to take names, we had Dalmias. Sudesh Sharanji knows very well. The whole Dalmia Nagar is a ghost town now. The Modi Nagar near Delhi is also practically ruined. Otherwise, it had so many big industries contributing to the national economy in a big, big way. What happened? The commitment which the father had did not come from the next generation, and they started withdrawing money and not plowing it back. I can give you example from the education sector. There are many, many good institutions now struggling to get admissions. So the commitment has to be there. The expectation from professionals is that they will be committed. I know one of the person, my very good friend, he had to resign from an organization because the chief executive did not show the commitment for the growth of the company. He was always thinking, I am here for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Let me not be bogged down by the commitment that is needed for the long term. Again, I will come back to the education sector because I am neck deep into this sector. The vice chancellors who are coming to the universities, they are all professionals, they are all academicians. They are expected to be professionals when they sit on the chair of a vice chancellor. But what is happening? Most of the public funded universities are struggling to keep their name and fame which they had 10 years ago or 15 years ago. Big universities are struggling. Government has said, we will not give you any more grant. You take loan from HIFA, Higher Education Funding Agency, and repay them. Earn your revenue, repay them. We are not going to add any more burden. So all these things have cumulative effect. And when the cumulative effect goes beyond a certain limit, it happens that there is no distinction between whether it was a family-based business or a professionally managed business. So with these initial comments, I think I will stop here and we can discuss further if any more thing is needed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Agrawal, for giving your views. And Professor Agrawal has also described the difference between business, professionally managed business, and the family business. And he says that, again, he says it all depends on how the family acts and even the professionally managed. And he has given examples of the public sector units which are supposed to be the professionally managed, how they have become sick. He has also mentioned about the education sector, what is the condition in education sector today. He has also mentioned that also. So it clearly shows that there is a very thin distinction between family business and professional managed business, but it is there and one has to see how it can go in a long run. So thank you very much, Professor Agrawal. Now I would like to ask my question to Professor Dr. Sudhir Saran. Professor Dr. Sudhir Saran, when we are talking about the family business and the professional business, right now the time is of startups, and a startup is a one person who is having some vision, and he make one team and he comes out with the startups. But we have seen that 90% of startups in India it could not succeed. They fail within 3 years or so, or within 5 years. So my question to you is whether these startups, because it's a visionary one person who has taken a lead and taking the professionals or the other team, you will term them as a family managed business or professionally managed business. And even if it is a professionally managed business, what is the reason why they are failing, when according to the the professionally managed business should run? Similarly, if it is a family managed business, although startup, we can't term them as family managed, although one person is from the family or two. So we would like to know about this thing, about whether the startups comes under which category and why it is failing so much if it is under the professionally managed business. Professor Dr. Sudhir Saran, please.
We will have to go for an advanced level conversation because the question demands it. And to honor the question, I am going to request you to listen particularly about the 3 dimensions I'm going to mention here. Professional, all 3 of us have brought out one aspect or the other combined. That is the total professional. Management is what we haven't explicitly discussed so far. So I'm going to discuss that now. Management is also a group of people And management is also a set of activity. Yourself, myself, Professor Anmohan Agrawal, Professor Pathak, we start a business to provide coaching to students who are aspirants of IAS. Then we will be called management. We are also the promoters. And if we have put our money to fund it, we are also simultaneously the owners. So the three things are in one place. Management, the group of people, the ownership, and the startup business. Then finally, business. Business here in this example is a very different kind of entity in the example which I have mentioned. A startup is actually a special kind of new venture. New venture is different from existing venture. So the moment we remember existing venture, new venture, and then a startup, we are now into a very sophisticated space. And that's why in the opening I said, please be prepared for an advanced level discussion. Not necessarily confusing, but definitely advanced. Management has a particular quality, and that is it brings all factors together to create wealth. Different schools of management are there, but all of them share this characteristic. They bring different resources to create wealth. This startup will be called professionally managed if and only if the management does its job and the professionals do their job. Professor Anand Mohan gave the example of the educational institution, and he was very clear that the professionals are committed. If they don't commit, they are neither professionals nor the agents of survival or growth of the business. So startups, founders, just because they have put their time, energy, money, creativity, does not guarantee that they will have a business which is growing. So now let me summarize my answer to your question. A startup is only if the management is proper. And it is proper only when provided by a person who is professional. So all three must come together, not go in three different directions. Professional, management, and business, they all combine together. Only then a startup becomes successful. Otherwise, as you mentioned, 8 of them are destroyed, fail, only 2 remain and succeed. Now I think you will understand why those who fail, fail, and why those who succeed, succeed. To summarize once again the summary part of it, remember, at the base of it all is a human being. A professional is a human. The management member is a human. The businessman is a human. And therefore, if the virtues generally accepted in the domain of work are respected, if I am objective, if I do not bring in unwanted emotions, if I bring unwanted emotions, I'm subject. And then if I respect the discipline, then only I'm professional. So you see, meeting these conditions are necessary for a startup to be flourishing. It is so delicate, little mistakes, and it will push us in the category of 8 failed startups. It's a very beautiful thing. I'm giving a very precise and concise answer. I will like to conclude by saying this. The family owned business and professionally owned business distinction does not apply to startups. Two friends may start it. What will we call that a startup? 5 friends who were serving together in some organization and they saw an opportunity, came together. What shall we call it? It is neither family owned nor professionally owned. It is a category by itself. Thank you very much. I hope the point is clarified.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Dr. Sudhir Saran, for clarifying about the startup condition, because nowadays a matter of startups everywhere. Now my question goes to Professor Agrawal. Professor Agrawal, you are talking about the professionalism in education sector, because education is also a business nowadays. But we are seeing in IITs and IIMs, which are professionally managed, they are still doing far better than any other private organization or privately managed university or engineering college or management college in India. What do you say about this, Professor?
Thank you, sir. Let me go back little in the education history. See, we have been seeing IITs, IIMs, and other organizations who have flourished, who have made their names in the education world throughout the globe. And they have developed a culture. Over a period of time, slowly and slowly, this culture is now being challenged. The government has, in the name of giving freedom, they have allowed a lot of innovative ideas to come to the IITs and IIMs. But unfortunately, they have not removed the Inspector Raj, within inverted comma, from the other colleges. So what happens when you are being subjected to 2 different kind of environment? There will be a big gap. These institutions are supposed to be the institutions who will set benchmark for the country's other educational institutions, and hence they must have very high standards, they must be respected. Though it is my 100% personal view, nothing to have any other kind of feeling. These institutions are also being systematically destroyed. Earlier, the IITs had an unwritten rule that they will not employ immediately their own graduates, own PhDs, graduate not PhDs. So if I have done from PhD from IIT Delhi, at least I have to wait for 5 years to be considered back to be a faculty in IITs. But in the name of growth, in the name of reservation, in the name of other considerations, now even non-IITians are becoming faculty member in IITs. I'm not undermining their capacity or credibility. I'm just saying the systematic degradation. We have new IITs where students are not going to take admission now. They are preferring private colleges, they are preferring other NITs or something, but not going to the IITs which are in the remote areas. Even same is with IIMs. So they will agree that the new IIMs are struggling to get good admissions. I'm not saying that the IITs are bad. What I am trying to say is, what is the return on the investment that the government has made? We have seen huge amount being invested in the government institutions, both at the state level or at the central level. But what has happened? What is the return? If you ask for patents from IITs, it is very minimum. If you ask for publications from IIMs, it is very minimum. Let's not criticize them. Let's come back to private sector. Why private sector institutions are making government institutions run faster? Many private management institutions are now, many private engineering colleges, universities are running neck to neck with the government organized universities, because they know that if we have to attract the best of faculty, the best of researchers, the best of students, we will have to be committed. I know many private institutions now being recognized as Institute of Eminence. Velour has come. So education is not some such, though I don't agree with the word industry, but let me use it here, is not some industry where you put the equipment today and from tomorrow production will start. Harvard has not become Harvard overnight. It has taken centuries to become Harvard. Cambridge has not become Cambridge overnight. So let us wait. Let us give a level playing field. I'm not saying give anything extra. Give a level playing field to the private sector, to the government. See why we say that affiliated system should be abolished. One Anna University has 800 colleges. I stand for correction if I have any wrong figure, but it was there 800 institutions in one university. Do you think that any vice chancellor can visit once, even during his tenure, to all the colleges for which he is signing the degree? No. The new education policy, national education policy, is now emphasizing on degree awarding institutions, autonomy, and having cluster of institutions. Let's hope that this happens. But what I'm trying to say is that education should not be put in the Inspector Raj as it is today. Thank you, sir.
Okay, although Professor Agarwal, you said the institutions can't be made overnight. You gave the example of Oxford and Harvard. But what we are seeing today, this online coaching institutions are becoming overnight, whether Bijus or Unacademy, etc., etc. But because I am going to keep this for tomorrow's discussion. So anyway, thank you very much. You have clarified the things, and we are hopeful that the government should not try to bring down this reputation of IIT as IIMs, which they are enjoying. Thank you very much. Now my question goes to Dr. Sudhir Saran. Dr. Sudhir Saran, people talk about professionalism. People talk about professionally managed company. If I will put it to you in a very, very straight way, it's all nothing. It's this professionally managed companies stands nowhere because of the whims and the wishes in front of the whims and wishes of the leader of the country. I will give you an example of Alibaba Group, very professionally managed. But what happened overnight? Where is Jack Ma? Where is the group? You can see in India also, many companies overnight finished. At one time, Sahara Group was in the helm everywhere, and it's like professionally managed. So many people were engaged, all top professionals were there. Where is that group now? So it all depends. Even Mr. Ratan Tata, he waited outside to meet the prime minister of country for long because there was a problem in Assam. And I'm sure you might be knowing, although you people were talking about so much professionalism in Tatas, what they are doing with Ulfas, how much money they are paying to the terrorist groups just to sustain their Tata Tea's gardens. So where is the professionalism? Where is the patriotism? So, and what happened to Enron? Where is the professionalism at that time? So my point is, it all depends on the one person, whether how he can satisfy the government. If he satisfies the government, where is the professionalism? He has to compromise many things. How Mr. Tata has donated so much huge amount to the PM Cares Fund. Everybody knows. And that's why this Center Vista was allotted to him. So my question to you is, when we talk about professionalism, let's not say that this group has professionally managed, this group is family run managed. All groups are under the purview of the government. How Facebook people were humiliated by the United States Parliament. They were asked so many questions. They were asked to do. So where is the professionalism, Professor Dr. Sudhir Saran?
I can very well see that you are agitated a little bit by the things that you are saying around you. I fully sympathize with you. Excuse me. I am equally agitated. The only thing which I have extra here on the table is this. I know there is a thing called political economy, Mr. Goel. Political economy is a out of fashion thing, but let me mention here, either you can have no political domination of the economic decisions, or on the other hand, you will have no economy autonomy. Everything will be dictated by politics. It is a long history, a very long history, Mr. Goel, and I'm happy you asked me. I'll very frankly open my heart here. I will say that the only respectable, honest, admirable political economy system is laissez-faire capitalism. I am not the only one. There are many people like me who believe in this philosophy. And only when laissez-faire capitalism is accepted as the general standard by all of the people of a particular country, of a particular state, of a particular region, will this malady which you mentioned, Tata's paying Ulfa, and CEOs standing outside a particular politician's office, or a company like Facebook being humiliated in the Senate hearing, they have been asking for it. Allow me to refer to a 1983 talk by Ayn Rand, her last speech. The video is there. It is about 43-minute talk. And that is an eye-opening one. She says anybody who is destroying business is not the politician. It is the businessmen who have surrendered the ideology of laissez-faire, who are responsible for the ignominy that follows them. She says that you are the one who are creating wealth. You should be asserting your rights. You should not accept any law which is not objective and fair to you to your employees, to your customers. If you do that in the short range, then you only are not only the victim, but the victim who has given his or her sanction. It is very well documented. Anybody who wants to know more about it should go and read Ayn Rand on the subject of capitalism, particularly the book, Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal. Mr. Goel, we have limited time. We try to cover a lot of ground between 10:30 and 12 o'clock every day. But here we don't want us to be shallow. We want ourselves to be deep. And here's the answer to your question. If today's businessmen are not observing a non-contradictory policy, in the press, if they say, we are ethical, and in private, if they pay protection money to terrorist organization, muscle men, influence peddlers, they only have to blame themselves. You don't have to bend your spirit. I will close my presentation by giving you an example of the gentleman who hired me in 1980 from Ahmedabad campus. He was in his 70th year, his wife became very ill and he said, I want to be relieved. And Shri Harishankar Singhaniaji says, please don't resign. We want you to be connected. We don't want to break the bond. You spend all the time in Lucknow with your wife. That is fine, but please don't resign. This is the honor and respect professionals get. This is the honor they get, and thereby the businessmen who have such professionals, they also get. Such people were not made to wait before finance minister and other ministers. They were called, invited, given due rest, listened to, and rest is history. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Saran. Now, my last question goes to Professor Agarwal. Professor Agarwal, campus interviews are taking place in the universities, colleges, everywhere. And the students, the criteria is pay amount, the pay packet, how much. What is your message to the youth, whether they should also screen the company which is coming for the campus interview, or just see that they are getting the job with high pay, whether the company is a professionally managed company or a family managed company? Is there a criteria the student, the youth or the student who is aspiring the employment should see, or they should go only for the salary? What is your message to the youth?
Thank you, sir. I was not expecting this question today, but let me tell you one story. When I was in BIT Mesra, a girl came with her parents, and the parents asked me, how is your campus? Please listen to the words. How is your campus? I understood that they are asking campus placement, but showing that I am ignorant, I said BIT Mesra has a very, very green, lush green campus, 800 acres. Sudhir has lived there, so he knows I have spent my very important days there. So he said, no, I'm not asking about the campus. I'm asking about the placement. I said, it is 0 to 100. So that gentleman got little irritated and he said, आप मजाक कर रहे हैं? उनका मजाक तो आपने शुरू किया है. जिस बच्चे को मैंने अभी एक दिन पढ़ाया नहीं, जिस बच्चे को मैंने अभी एक दिन सिखाया नहीं, देखा नहीं, इवैल्यूएट नहीं किया, मैं क्या बोलूं क्या प्लेसमेंट होगा? प्लेसमेंट तो होगा भाई इनके कैलिबर पर. मेरा काम है कंपनी ला देना. कंपनी को मैं फोर्स नहीं कर सकता हूं कि आप इनको लीजिए. नाउ लेट्स कम बैक टू द today's scenario. It has changed a lot in 20 years. If you go by the media report, we have a lot of unemployment. If you go by the reports of individual colleges, no student is unemployed. They all say 100% placement. So where is the gap? Sudhirji, are you understanding? Every college writes that we have 100% placement. Average package, 10 lakh rupees. Now, these are the things which, unfortunately, the regulators are totally blind. They don't see these things. What is happening? It is the peer pressure and it is the social stigma. If a student fails in Infosys, his mother and father's blood pressure increase from 120 to 130. If he fails in some other, it goes to 140. They don't understand that there was a weakness in their own child. If you ask me, if I have to ask my sons or my known people or my student, I will say, select that company which gives you the best training. Be it professionally managed, be it family managed, don't worry. See who trains you, because it is the training which will add to your theoretical knowledge, and after a few years, 2-3 years, you will be a hot cake in the market. But then, unfortunately, we are running after the package. The packages are so confusing. Even if you are allotted a chair and table, that square feet is added into your package. If you are sent on a business meeting, that airfare is added in your package. So all kind of things are happening. So my only suggestion is to youth, please check what is the training given. Sudhir will agree, when we were students or when we started our career, TISCO was the most preferred because they had 1 year graduate training, which was very, very good. So thank you very much, sir, for inviting us and giving us chance with our friends. And I hope that today's discussion will help. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So viewers, you have seen today, we discussed about the professionally managed business. Views are very, very clear. Professionally managed businesses are always better, but there are views which is also there that those family run businesses, professionally managed companies, because there is a lots of very thin distinction, and there are many family chairmen, family managed companies chairmen, who are not having that much self-interest. Everybody is having self-interest. We can't say that no one is having self-interest, but who is having least self-interest, and they are for the company, for the stakeholders, then definitely the company is called professionally managed. But a totally professionally managed company also sacrifice or compromise with the government regulations, government whims and wishes. So there is a very, very difficult time to say that only professionally managed companies can work better or only family run businesses can come better. Rather, a hybrid system for where the family, because after all, the company which is started by a promoter have some vision, and if their family names is involved, the generations who are on the helm of the company wants to keep their family name intact, definitely they engage the professionals, and their professionally managed company can be termed as a professionally managed company. So very thin line to distinguish, but one has to be, whether you are professionally managed or a privately managed, if you are thinking for the benefit of the society, thinking for the everyone, then you are successful. But if you are just thinking about yourself, then as our panelist says, then even a good professionally managed company can be doomed, and it can also be see the same thing with a family run because of the self-interest. So thank you very much. And today's program has been live telecasted by V4 News, Karu News, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV India, News Gaon se Samvad Saroka News, Bharat Post News, Gyan, as well as shown live on Facebook and YouTube. And our endeavor to bring to you every day new topic. And tomorrow's topic is online coaching, pros and cons. So please tune in tomorrow for media conference with Lal Goel at 10:30 a.m. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Sudhir Sen. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Anand Mohan Agrawal. And thank you very much, Professor Dr. Pramod Pathak, for giving and enlightening our viewers about the professionally managed business in India or all the world. And I'm sure today's program is very enlightening, and all the viewers who are watching our show, especially the youth, are quite enlightened with such a distinguished professors who have given their views. I'm sure that they will think twice before joining any of the organization. Do their own screening so that tomorrow they will not feel regret. Thank you very much.